this has to be the most rock and roll title I think I've had on any of my videos. This is Abaddon Blood Skulls. To begin the process, I use Iroko, colour from scale 75. It's a mid-tone beige, has quite a lot of yellow in there. I apply this just as a base coat. Now it's important to remember when we paint light colours like this to not only paint it in straightforward colours. So when you think of a bone colour, we automatically go for that bone colour we've been using for years, that we rely on, and we don't even really think about how we can manipulate it, how we can blend it with other colours, how can we make it more interesting. So hopefully this tutorial will give us an inclination of that, and it's already begun. So I have used a small amount of white with the Iroko. I've added it onto his cloak, and I've used a very small amount of Lupercal green. Why green? Well, I want that ambient tone, that ambient glow reflecting from the surroundings. This goes into the base coat of the miniature, and it won't become too obvious later on as we apply things like Rhinox hide on top like we have there. For the top knot, I've used Eclipse Grey, which is a very dark grey colour, and then I've added a minute amount of Ice Yellow plus Lupercal Green for the highlight. You can see how I'm using just the very top of the brush, just the very tip of the brush to add the highlight. I'll do the same here. So it's the same combination. It's that mid-tone birch colour, that mid-tone beige that I've manipulated with white, black and a touch of green for that ambient glow, for that ambient surrounding colour. So what do I mean by ambient? Ambient is the surrounding colour. I imagine this guy, Abaddon, he has stood upon the ashes of some imperial world that he's burned to the ground. Imagine it's quite dark above him. The atmosphere has just been ruined by the re-entry of his flagship. So the whites, the yellows, the bright colours will be affected by the surrounding colours. When you look at somebody's skin tone on a dark day or on a winter's day, it has that slight blue tinge to it. When you think of shows like Game of Thrones, if you've ever watched that, whenever they film up north, or whenever they shoot footage of the north, it always has that slight blue inflection because of the surroundings. When they shoot in Bravos down south, it has a more orangey yellow tone to it because the sun is there. You can bring in the colour nuance, you can bring in the colour psychology to your own work. So not only are we concentrating on the way we manipulate the brush on the surface of a miniature, we are also concentrating on the colour psychology and our colour choice. Now here I keep mixing ever more ivory into the mixture and adding several successive coats to build up that highlight. So again and again I'll pick out, I don't want to pick out individual flecks of hair, but instead I want to concentrate on clumps of hair to begin with, and then I could individualize them later on. the more layers you add, the stronger the white will become. To finish off his top knot, I have mixed a small amount of Vallejo ivory into the birch plus black mixture, and I'm highlighting. You could use Nakar for this from scale 75, or any beige colour with a pinch of black in there. I'm adding a specular highlight to give the appearance of like an oiled, lacquered hair. Okay, let's concentrate on the skull between his legs. So begin the process by Rhinox hide plus black, 50-50 to give good coverage. Then I use birch, and take note of exactly how I begin the highlighting process. How I use the very tip of the brush to find the top mote of light. At this point, I'm not worried whatsoever about the blend. In fact, when you look at skulls, there's quite a lot of calcium deposits. It's broken up, it's fractured. So I'm trying to imitate this fractured surface with the way I manipulate the brush on the surface. I'll maneuver between birch plus a pinch of Lupercal green and ivory. You can see that green, it gives the skull a much more realistic appearance than if we just used our go-to bone colour. In fact, as an exercise, what I would like you to do, good colour mixing and matching exercise. I want you to take nothing but black, white and yellow. I want you to mix those three colours together, mainly using the white. So the white will be about 90%, there'll be 5 to 6% yellow, 5 to 4% black. And I want you to create your own bone colour. It's a really nice it's a really nice introduction to colour mixing and matching, and learning how to develop your own colour palette. Now, I perform this procedure across all the skulls, not worrying too much about the blends themselves. Again, having a skull reference in front of you will give you a good idea of the kind of fractured appearance that skulls do have. So I've mixed a touch of Lupercal green in here, again to reflect the ambient surroundings, and I've used as a glaze into the shadows. I'll also glaze it partway over the highlight and mid-tone just to help blend things together and pick out any nice details like the inquisitorial symbol on the skull. Glazing like this really does help blend any unusual tones that you've built up so far, as well as the fractured appearance that we're aiming for with the skulls. And it can also introduce some really nice colour nuance. So the next time you paint a skull, don't just reach for that skull recipe you've been relying on all of your painting career. Instead, try and mix some unusual tones in there, some ambient colours. Green, purples, blues. Anything in the cold colour range would be quite nice, because cold colours are recessive, so when we add them to the shadows they naturally blend back into the background, whereas warmer colours stand out on edge, they stand out to us. So any cool colours you choose to use in the recesses would be a perfect combination. Okay, once that has dried, I use ivory, again using the very tip of the brush just to pick out any details that I want to bring to the fore. The aim, as ever, is not to give a perfectly blended surface, instead is to suggest colour interest, and it's to suggest texture. This is a departure from Games Workshop style, absolutely. It may take you a while to build up the confidence to create these, it's described as like painterly brush strokes, but I don't really regard them as that. It's just taking into appreciation the volumes of the miniature and trying to create artificial surfaces. So when your eye looks at it, it recognizes that it is a different surface to, say, the Blood Angel helmet on his back rack. Say that 10 times fast. Okay, blood. One of my favourite things to do. I always feel like I'm cheating when I'm doing this, because a tiny amount of blood can really make a project sing. You could do it on your Necromunda miniatures, on the bases. Just a slight blood here and there works wonders. So what you need to do is grab some UHU glue. UHU, it's the cheap German brand. Mix that up with Tamiya Red and add a pinch of black, just a tiny amount of black ink. I'm using a really bust up old brush here, just layering it, adding it into the gaps and recesses of this poor marine that's been butchered by one of Abaddon's lackeys, or perhaps Abaddon himself. I'm not sure whether you consider yourself lucky to be killed by Abaddon or one of his lackeys, but who knows. So I've just added a lot in there and let it spread out. The reason why we include the UHU glue is that it thickens it up. And we can do some really unusual effects with it. We can create blood strands like I'm about to here. You can create congealing blood. You can also create strands of viscera, which I dare say they'll put on the Talon of Horus, because it's such a cool technique. You can see how when you lift the brush off, it leaves those strands, and it's really good. So I'm using a stipple brush for this procedure to give the impression of like random blood splatters, which I want to achieve on the skulls, because none of his conquests are ever bloodless. More blood the better. You've got to satisfy, you've got to hit those quotas. If you're going to be the champion of the four undivided, undivided champion of the four powers, you need to hit those quotas. Oh, just dropped Abaddon there, like he's a plastic kit. Now if that happened with the old metal kit, it would have smashed into a million pieces. Okay, I'm just adding some blood splatters towards the base of his cloak. You can add blood splatters on any areas that you feel maybe lacking in a bit of detail, lacking in a bit of interest, something that you could introduce. It's that wild card. Any area, Talon of Horus is perfect. I would, well, I don't put it on Drac 9, purely because I think if he hit anything that exploded in blood, so if the blade would absorb the blood, it wouldn't stand on it, it wouldn't be splattered against it. I think those hungry faces would slaver it up. And that's it for the tutorial. Thank you very much, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. If you do paint anything using any of these techniques, please tag me. I'd love to share your work via social media. We've had a glut of people sending their work, and I'm really enjoying it. So if you use anything, please let me know. I'll see you next time.